Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into an absolutely fascinating allegorical journey. We're going to bridge the gap between hard biophysics and, well, profound faith. And it all centers around the cryobiology lab at the Tokyo Institute of Technology. The story we're exploring today asks a really profound question about human emotion, spirituality, and literally the molecular structure of the water in our bodies. So, get ready, because this data is it's truly captivating.
To really understand this story, we first got to meet Dr. Kenji Tanaka. He's a strict, materialistic biophysicist. You know, if you ask Dr. Tanaka what happens when we cry, he'd basically tell you tears are a random solution of sodium chloride, water, and proteins. Boom. Fast, analytical, strictly clinical. To him, it absolutely doesn't matter if you're crying because you stubbed your toe or, I don't know, because you just had your heart broken. A tear is just biology. It's just a byproduct.
But then, enter Dr. Safia Hussein. She's the head researcher at the lab, and she looked at tears and asked a totally different, profound question. What if the shape of our tears actually changes based on the state of our soul? Safia was inspired by verses in the Quran describing tears flowing from the eyes of believers. She kind of wondered, if a tear is an expression of a person's deepest internal state, could that spiritual difference literally alter the physical, geometric structure of the tear itself? This right here is the question that sparks the whole central mystery of our story today.
This beautifully illustrates the core ideological clash that sets the stage for a seriously groundbreaking experiment. On one hand, you've got Dr. Kenji's purely materialistic view, right? Tears is just a biological byproduct. And on the other, Dr. Safia's spiritually driven hypothesis, tears as a physical manifestation of the heart. So how do you settle a massive philosophical debate between two top-tier scientists? Well, you design a rigorously controlled experiment. And that's exactly what Safia did. She designed this brilliant, long-term study using a process called ultra-fast vitrification. That's basically just flash freezing tears. Then she analyzed them under a cryotransmission electron microscope. She divided her subjects into 3 distinct groups based on what caused them to cry. Group A shed tears from physical pain. Group B shed tears from general emotional media, like, sad movies or pop songs. And Group C shed tears while listening to Quranic recitation in a state of khushu', which translates to a really profound sense of awe, reverence, and spiritual submission. Now, the revelation of the cryo-TEM results showed this stark contrast. The tears from Group A, the pain group, crystallized into these random, asymmetric, kind of muddy shapes. Group B, the emotional media group, also random and geometryless. But Group C, the tears shed in awe, they formed something completely anomalous. They actually crystallized into a perfect hexagonal lattice. And even crazier, at the corners of this lattice, the microscope revealed a curved shape that literally resembled the Arabic letter Sin. That's the first letter of the word Subhanallah, which means glory be to God. No way, right?
Safia didn't just stop there, though. She ran X-ray diffraction tests on these extraordinary crystals. Normal tears feature water molecules forming your standard random tetrahedral lattice. But the tears from the Quran group exhibited something astonishing. The lattice actually shifted into a rare pentagonal or 5-sided symmetry. Let me tell you, this specific geometric arrangement of water is incredibly rare in nature. The sheer structural organization was literally blowing away everything they thought they knew about the physics of human fluids.
Of course, Dr. Kenji, ever the skeptic, flat out refused to believe this was spiritual. He looked at the data and asked, can a synthetic tone create the exact same pentagonal crystal? He just assumed the whole result was a simple acoustic reaction. Like if the recitation was hitting certain frequencies, he figured he could just blast normal tears with those exact same audio frequencies using a synthesizer. Force the water into that rare pentagonal shape and completely strip away the spiritual element.
So Kenji tests his theory using popular healing frequencies at 432 Hz and 528 Hz. The result? Total failure. The crystals stayed random. Why? Well, Safia's spectrograms actually revealed the answer. The synthetic tones had very low acoustic complexity. But the human, living recitation of the Quran had an amplitude modulation and a transition of speech formants that was 100 times more complex. The recitation wasn't just some flat sound wave, it was a dynamic, living utterance.
Let's break down the exact biomechanics of what Safia discovered here, because it's absolutely crucial. She defined a phenomenon called the acoustic hydrogen bond. Basically, when a person listens to the recitation, the specific speech formants, particularly those resting between 300 and 500 Hz, they literally interact with the water's hydrogen bonds. This living acoustic energy reorients the molecules, shaping the mucin proteins inside the tear into these incredibly rare symmetries. A flat, synthetic tone simply doesn't contain the soul or, the complex acoustic data required to build this kind of architecture.
But we're not just talking about sound hitting water from the outside. It was actually a massive internal biological shift. By measuring heart rate variability, Safia mapped out this incredible four-step biological chain reaction. Step 1, the profound awe triggers massive parasympathetic activation in the nervous system. That's your rest and digest or peace state. Step 2, oxytocin and endorphins flood the system. Step 3, this huge hormonal shift causes sodium levels in the tears to drop and potassium to rise. And finally, Step 4, this entirely new chemical environment allows those mucin proteins to form that stunning pentagonal symmetry.
And the crucial takeaway here is this one incredible metric, 40%. When the subjects listened to the recitation and actually reached that state of spiritual awe, their parasympathetic nervous system activity, basically their biological baseline of peace, jumped by exactly 40%. This wasn't some minor fluctuation. It was a massive, measurable physiological state of tranquility that directly dictated the crystal chemistry of their tears.
Now, any good scientist will tell you that a study is only as good as its replication, right? Well, Kenji was so stunned by the 40% jump and the acoustic data that he took matters into his own hands. He brought in 100 completely independent volunteers. He played them the recitation, measured their heart rate variability, and ran their tears through the cryo-TAM himself. And the results were undeniable. Across all 100 subjects, the exact same biological pattern emerged. The data was absolutely bulletproof.
To kind of summarize the chemistry for a second, sad tears are literally bathed in stress. They have high levels of the stress hormone cortisol and high sodium, which creates this chaotic, random crystal. But grand tears, these tears of awe, they're born from the chemistry of peace. High oxytocin, low sodium, and high potassium create an environment where the water molecules fall into what Safia called hexagonal resonance. Basically, stress destroys symmetry and peace builds it.
But all of this, the geometry, the chemistry, the biology, it was all just leading up to Safia's most shocking discovery. She was looking at these intricate, glowing pentagonal crystals under the microscope and thought, well, what if we take this a step further? What actually happens when you put this rare pentagonal crystal into a three-dimensional CT scan? What exactly is hiding inside those layers?
When the 3D scan completed, Safia was brought to tears herself. The microscopic layers of the pentagonal crystal had literally stacked upon one another to form a three-dimensional Arabic sentence right inside the tear. It spelled out the verse from Surah Ashar, "Indeed, with hardship will be ease." The tears weren't just forming pretty shapes, guys. The water was literally capturing the mathematical reflection of the spiritual comfort that the subject was feeling. It was, quite literally, a frozen prayer. This revelation deeply shaken Kenji. Late that night, he was sitting in the lab all alone. He put on the recitation of Surah Ad-Dua, and for the very first time, he wept. He quickly flash-froze his own tear and ran the scan. Now, the crystal that formed was indeed pentagonal, but the text inside was different. Instead of forming the word yusra, meaning ease, the crystal showed a shadow of the word usra, meaning hardship. His crystal was only half formed. He called Safia, completely confused and, honestly, vulnerable, and Safia offered him this profound, gentle explanation. She told him, "Tears are the mirror of your heart. When you listened, your heart moved, but it didn't fully open yet. That's why the crystal is half-formed. When you say Amin from your heart, the yusra, the ease, will be complete." It was just a beautiful reminder that our tears understand the language of the soul, not just acoustic signals or biological commands.
The climax of this incredible story happened just last month at the International Society for Cryobiology. Safia stood before the world's leading scientists and visualized the three distinct realities of human tears. She revealed the tears of pain, muddy and broken. She revealed the tears of emotional songs, round but entirely hollow inside. And then she revealed the tears of awe, these glowing, highly structured pentagons proudly displaying the molecular architecture of ease.
As she finished her presentation, Dr. Kenji Tanaka, the former strict materialist, stood up in front of all his peers. He looked at the crowd and delivered this incredibly powerful realization. He said, "I have studied water for 30 years. I thought it was just H2O. But Safia has shown me water is not just atoms. Water is memory." He completely abandoned his previous stance, acknowledging that when the human heart interacts with profound reverence, The water in our bodies actually remembers and crystallizes that exact state of peace.
Today, their facility is affectionately known as the Cryo-Islam Lab, and Safia has adopted this incredible personal routine. Every morning, she collects a single tear and places it under the microscope. For her, it's literally a diagnostic tool. If the crystal forms beautifully, she knows her heart is in a good place. But if it's chaotic or muddy, well, she knows her inner self needs tending to. She literally uses her own cellular biology to monitor the health of her faith.
Safia is actually compiling all of this research right now into a forthcoming book titled The Crystallized Tear. In the final chapter, she explores this breathtaking theological concept. It's the idea that these tears of awe don't just disappear into the soil. While the water falls to the earth, the perfect crystalline structure, that mathematical signature of peace and reverence, is recorded. She writes that these tiny, frozen prayers hold the reflection of the rivers of paradise, and that they're destined to shine brilliantly on the day of judgment.
And that brings us to a final, really powerful question to ponder today. We so often think of crying as a breakdown, don't we? But looking at this incredibly structured, beautiful data, are tears really just a sign of emotional weakness? Or, when they're shed in a state of true awe and peace, are they the ultimate proof that ease is quite literally written into the very molecular structure of the water within us? Keep questioning the incredible science of our world, and thanks for joining me for this explainer.